Hello, Sooner Nation, OU Insider subscribers, Coach Brian Clinton enthusiasts, people who are still trying to process a chaotic weekend at the University of Oklahoma, only to realize that in 2 days the Sooners have to go to Oxford, Mississippi, and play a top-ranked team desperately looking for a win. And OU's a 20-point underdog. If you're trying to process all that, this is the podcast for you. This is another episode of the Oklahoma Drill, a podcast fueled by OU Insider and the Rivals Network. And Brian, as you may remember, we had done this intro yesterday.
Sure.
We've done intros. We've done this podcast for like 56 weeks now. We've done intros, done them before. We had to record the pod in 2 parts yesterday. And for some reason, the intro didn't save. So you've got your script of everything you said yesterday. I've got my script. Yep. And we're going to literally repeat it verbatim. But mostly this is just because I don't think you're wearing the same clothes and I'm not wearing the same clothes. And at some point in like 20 minutes of this video, it will go back to the second part, which we recorded yesterday. So Brian, again, another intro. How are you, sir?
Great. Groundhog Day.
Oh, shoot. For a second, I was like, wait, is it February? That's how long this season has felt, man.
Yeah. I mean, it does kind of, I am starting to get that feel with the schedule. Like, it does feel like Groundhog Day at this point. Like, the last 3 weeks going into each one of these games, it's like, okay.
It doesn't feel like we're going to Oxford tomorrow. Like, that still hasn't like set into me that like tomorrow morning we're driving to Oxford.
Nope. Hasn't me either. And perhaps that's just like because my expectations are low.
I
don't like. I hate to say that, but it's just the truth. I mean, not that my expectations are low for Oxford. That's not what I mean. Like, I am excited about seeing the Grove. Like, this is a good football team that Oklahoma's about to face.
Headline: Brian hates Oxford. Hates Ole Miss.
Write
it. Someone write it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it. We didn't, because we record this typically on a Wednesday. The one thing that we don't, and I'm just like throwing this curveball at you. I hope you're ready for it. Is the injury report? Like, we don't get to talk about that.
That's true. Also, I'm not a big baseball guy. So when you say curveball, I don't even know what's a curveball.
I'm throwing an audible at you. There you go.
That's okay. Thank you. Let's keep this in football terms. Baseball's dead to me since the A's are no longer in Oakland. Yeah. So yesterday we talked about, we introed with just our reaction to Seth Littrell's firing, obviously. And in the Joe John Finley, I don't know if it's a ascension, interim play calling duties. He's taking over interim play calling duties with Kevin Johns taking over as a co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach in the interim, and we're going to react to that. But before we do, like you mentioned, we don't get to typically react to the availability report, and those come out. The first one of the week always comes out on Wednesday night. And Brian, I'll say I expected nothing really surprised me. Deion Burks is listed as questionable. All the other usual suspects are on there except Cade McIntyre. Cade McIntyre's not on there, but I don't really think anything of Deion Burks being questionable. I'm curious what you think. I am optimistic he's going to play. I was surprised that Gavin Sawchuk is doubtful, just doubtful.
Yes. Yeah.
That surprised me.
I thought that was interesting, especially considering that Coach Venables was asked about Sawchuk's not playing last week. That was asked. He was asked about that this week. And mentioned that he had, pre-game right before the game had messed something up. I think he said his quad or
strained quad.
Yeah, strained quad. So to see him as doubtful, I mean, obviously that's still messing with him. I honestly don't know how much that hurts Oklahoma. Like,
it's bad to say. We are 7 games into the year, Brian. He has 20 carries for 43 yards.
That's just nuts.
It's just nuts.
That's wild. I cannot believe that.
43. 43.
And that's a guy that finished off the year with, was it five straight
5 straight over
games?
100.
Over 100?
And he averaged over 7 yards a carry in that stretch. Wow. He's basically averaging 7 yards or 6 yards a game, which when you put that into perspective, I will say, I think for people wondering about, Deion Burks, like I said, I think with the other receivers, we have said this for a while. I think count your lucky stars if they play, don't bank on it. I think that's been the case for a while. With Deion, I do think there's real optimism that he'll play. I think there was real optimism that he was going to play last week, and he looked good going through pregame warmups.
Yes.
And my indication was that I think he would have played if that game wasn't over in 5 minutes.
Right.
I think he'll play. I don't quote me on that. I think he'll play. His status will be worth monitoring. Mm-hmm. As far as it was interesting that Sam Franklin's not on it at all. So when you're looking at the running back room, I do wonder without Sawchuk, I'm going to assume doubtful means he's not going to play. I do wonder because last weekend we saw Caleb Hicks get his first snaps of the season.
Yep.
And he had I think he played 18 snaps, 2 carries for 11 yards. I thought looked fine.
Yeah, explosive. I mean, same guy we saw in spring.
Yeah. So I do wonder, but since Sam Franklin isn't listed and Sam Franklin has typically operated as the 4th string running back that has seen sporadic snaps throughout the year, I do wonder because I think a lot of people were like, oh, Caleb Hicks, he's alive on the field doing stuff. Yeah. I wonder if he'll still get maybe some, I wouldn't expect a ton of playing time, but some spot snaps behind Tatum and Barnes, or if that's going to go to Franklin.
Yeah.
I hope it goes to Caleb Hicks.
I'm curious about that because I think at this point in the year, if you find somebody with a hot hand at running back, you need to keep them out there.
Two carries for 11 yards. That's for this team.
Yeah. I don't know, man. To me, I will say this, and we talked about this yesterday, which means I'm foreshadowing the fact that we're going to talk about it later on the podcast. But I think everything that goes into this week, given the changes, you just kind of have to throw your expectations a little bit out the window.
Yeah.
And things are going to be different. And one of the things I hope is different is the running back rotation. I hope that we see a little more reasoning rather than it just almost feeling random as to who is out there, who starts, who's getting carries. There's guys in that room. It's a talented group. There is no lack of talent there. So can they figure it out? I guess we'll see.
Well, this goes with the scope of reacting to Seth Littrell's dismissal, which we talked about yesterday. But obviously for the sake of people getting to hear our reaction to it, I think when people think about what's going to be different or just how to process all of this, I do think one of the things, as you alluded to, that we'll see this weekend is I do think we'll see some slightly different personnel decisions across the board. It has been indicated to me that I think Littrell had a pretty heavy hand in personnel decisions across the board.
Yeah.
And which is a little, I don't know if unusual is the right word. Not always the case with an offensive coordinator. Not always the case. And I think, Bryan, I had already given my thoughts. You gave your thoughts yesterday, which have been erased from the planet. But now that you've had, so yesterday was roughly 72 hours since the dismissal, and now it's
96, something like that.
Something, I can't do math. Do you feel any differently today than you did yesterday? Just your overall thoughts on the dismissal and the state of the offense right now.
Yeah, it's as I said yesterday. as you all well know. Um, I it was the move that had to be made. Like it's not an easy move. It's not something that uh it wasn't something that Brent Venables obviously was happy to do or really wanted to do, I'm sure. But it was the move that had to be made because Oklahoma's just been so abysmal on the offensive side of the ball. He did make sure to reiterate that it doesn't all fall at the feet of Seth Littrell, all the issues, which is certainly the case. I mean, everybody on the offensive side of the ball has their part to play in what has been just an absolute disaster so far this season. So, it doesn't all fall on Seth Littrell, but um, at the end of the day, he is the offensive coordinator. He was a play caller, and your responsibilities, the umbrella under which all those other things, all those other pieces and players and coaches operate, that does fall under his responsibility. So, um, you know, in the end, it had to be done. Especially, really, it only had to be done when it was because of how the last 2 weeks went. If Oklahoma loses last week 27-24 and the offense is competitive, um, Seth Littrell's probably still around.
Things are probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little
Yeah.
different. But because you've been outscored 69-12 over the last 2 weeks, it's you just that stuff will not stand in Norman. It just can't. There's just not very many programs out there that have the expectations that the people in Norman do. So it had to happen. I think moving forward, it's really to see Joe John Finley move into that role. It'll be interesting to see how things go with him being a play caller for the first time and all of that, but also Kevin Johns being more involved. Him being more involved, as far as coaching quarterbacks. I think he's going to be obviously he's going to be more experienced than Littrell was from that perspective because Littrell hadn't coached quarterbacks prior to this last season. But I do think that there's some value in that, and there's just some overall value in the changes being made. And I don't know if this part made it into the podcast yesterday or not, but I kind of likened it yesterday to how we do our jobs. If we're changing, if I write a story and I go to post it, but before I do, I have you look at it. I may think it's perfect, but you are going to edit it and find things that are issues with it. And I think that that's like one of the values that come from this is the way Seth Littrell was seeing things for the first 8 weeks of the season. It's going to be different now. Somebody else is in charge. Somebody else is looking over everything. There are going to be issues that are addressed that maybe weren't being addressed beforehand. Maybe new issues arise. Hopefully that's hopefully not the case. But overall, I think it was the move that had to be made. And at the end of the day, you hope that there's some semblance of improvement for the rest of the season. And then, once December hits, you can kind of switch gears and start working towards 2025. But in right now, in the situation Oklahoma's in, it's still got 5 games they got to play, and you can't just punt on the season.
Well, it's the thing we had talked about after the Texas game, which was if you're not going to make the change then after such a bad performance against Texas, the one thing you couldn't do was come home, get blown out against South Carolina, and the offense looks bad. We said that, and then that's exactly what happened. And and I've said this before, but there's been a couple of moments over the last few days. It even happened last night where I was like, man, Littrell only got 8 games as a play caller. Is that really enough to make a sample size? Then you look at the numbers. I'm still trying to process how bad this offense has been and the numbers have been. And yeah, I mean, I think even in just 8 games, I think what you ultimately wanted to see, and Brent talked about this on Tuesday, he talked about this on Monday, you want to see some semblance of improvement across the board in certain players and position groups as the offense as a whole.
Yep.
And yeah, you're playing harder teams in the SEC, like, of course. But what we have seen in conference play and over the course of the season is an offense that's deteriorating, that's not getting better. It's getting worse. And you mentioned this yesterday, but there's just no identity. There doesn't seem to be a framework in which the offense operates and does things based on that framework. And I liken this, I think, to 8 games is unprecedented for a tenure of an offensive coordinator, particularly at the University of Oklahoma. But this thing has gotten so bad, and you're really a rock skip away from a 3-4 record as opposed to a 4-3 record, which would make things feel even worse. But this isn't the boats taking on water. This is the boats halfway in the water.
Right.
I mean, and if you don't make the move now, you are risking the boat going 3 miles into the ocean. That's how bad this thing is.
This offense is so bad right now that if you didn't have the best defense you've had in a decade in Norman,
you might be 1-6.
You might be, yeah. You may have. You're probably not winning that Houston game just the way it went.
And I genuinely would think Tulane's a toss-up.
Yep, I agree. I mean, you're probably 2-5, 1-6, which is just baffling. Yeah, I mean, and as you said, again, I may be saying this twice in this podcast, but it just felt like something that needed to be said yesterday, and I want to reiterate it to make sure it is said. The offense to this point has just been like wandering around in the pitch black darkness without a flashlight and just hoping that it bumps into success. Like, that's what it's felt like. And now you kind of hope that changing hands and putting somebody else in charge for the remainder of the season, that hopefully they at least get a directive. Like, this is the direction that we're going with this offense. This is who we're leaning towards. This is who we're running with. Let's lock arms and go.
We're gonna transition to the second part of the podcast, which we recorded yesterday. But before we do that, this is something that I had thought about, Brian, that I wanted to reiterate in this first segment that I don't think I said yesterday, which is, it is always a shame when you have a guy like Littrell that means a ton to the program, who was on the team from 97 to 2000, was an important leadership part of that 2000 national title team. Obviously, that's a team that Brent Venables was also on staff for. It is always a shame when that doesn't work out, because there's nothing better than, I think, just as a college football fan, to see a former player or something like that come back to a program and have success in another role. Like, that is awesome. And I think that's part of why people are rooting so hard for Brent Venables, because he's not just a guy. He was on staff for 15 years.
Right.
What was a huge part of OU's last championship, which was 25 years ago. People want to see Brent Venables succeed, and not only because they want the University of Oklahoma head coach to succeed, but it's because it's Brent Venables.
Right.
So you want to see Littrell succeed. And I think the unfortunate reality is, as much as I think it can play a role in hiring somebody, that past success or that connection, it can't play a role in decisions that are made now.
Right.
And I think you don't want this to foreshadow Brent Venables' tenure, because, and what I mean by that is, Brent Venables has to fix this now. And I don't mean they have to win all 5 of the remaining games for this to feel better, or for Brent Venables to have some stability. But the reality is, if this doesn't get better, Brent Venables enters next season with a warm seat.
Right.
And whatever feeling there is about how it is unfortunate that Littrell didn't work out is going to be magnified 1 billion times if Venables doesn't work out.
Right.
He needs to he's got to get this. That's why it's like, this isn't like the Lincoln Riley thing, which obviously that's a whole different thing. But like, yeah, he spent a couple of years on staff as the offensive coordinator, then would transition. Venables means so much to this program, in the history of this program. And so I think that almost adds some weight to all of this. But the reality is that, Venables is looking with one eye towards, what can I do to stabilize this thing, not only for the future of the program, but the future of of him
Yeah.
at the program with the program.
Right. Yeah. No, that's perfectly encapsulated. That's exactly what he's having to deal with right now, because you look at not just what he means to the program, but what the program means to him. I mean, like this guy, yes, he was at Clemson and won a couple of national championships there, but like, at least for me, when I think Brent Venables, I think of that early 2000s, like that run of defenses that he had in Norman there, and him with Bob Stoops, like,
I grew up on that.
yeah, like
I
that
grew
that
up on
is
that.
that is something that I vividly remember. To me, Brent Venables, with the vein popping out in his forehead and
Ripping
getting after
somebody.
yes, like that to me was like my first experience of Oklahoma football. Like that was the intensity, the passion, like I mean, just the demand for success. Like that, he really brings all of that into this program. And there's nobody there that wants to have success here more than he does. I mean, he
I,
wants this.
I think
And
his biggest dream is winning a national championship as the head coach of the University of Oklahoma.
yeah, like, and that's it's not often that you get it's not often that you get opportunities, or guys get opportunities to do something like that. Like, actually live out their top dream. And for him to be in the position to do that, something tells me that if there's a will or a way for him to get things done, to set things up what he believes is going to give him the most chance for success, he's going to get it done. Unfortunately, there's a fast track for that. No, you don't get time like you used to. It's you have most places you have 2 or 3 years. He is heading into the back half of year three, and year four is shaping up like it's going to be a pressure cooker. So, I really want him to have success. I know the rest of, I know the entire fan base does as well, but it's not easy, not in the SEC.
Nope. And to put a bow on that, I'm not saying like Brent Venables loves this place and he wants to do things because he loves this place. It's not about his personal, like, of course, like he has his personal goals and aspirations, but like,
Sure, right.
but
I mean, his kids were born here, and this is yes, yeah.
And unfortunately, but that comes with having to recognize that the offense isn't functioning, and that means firing somebody that he knows very well.
Yep.
That also means a lot to this place. But
Yep.
if he wants to have success here, if he wants to turn this around, these are the kind of decisions you have to make.
Yep.
And because this is in the scope of, if things don't get better, he enters next season, like you mentioned, in a pressure cooker. That's the reality of this. This isn't year one. This isn't year two. This is the back half of year three going into year four. You don't get unlimited bites at the apple. And when you've already had a 6 and 7 season, which that's not all on Venables, there's all kinds of stuff that we're not going to talk about right now. But the reality is there's already been a 6 and 7 season in his tenure at Oklahoma that
Right.
you don't get unlimited bites at the apple. He's got to fix this now.
Yep.
They can't afford to rebuild. They can't. You can't.
No.
Can't just rebuild. So, yeah, man. Can't believe we're going to Oxford in 2 days.
Be fun.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Don't know how competitive Oklahoma will be, but maybe this whole shakeup.
I feel better.
Maybe this whole
today than I
shakeup.
did. I feel better today than I did yesterday. Now, that doesn't mean it's not progressive. It doesn't necessarily mean I'll feel better about it tomorrow, but we'll see.
I actually feel a little bit better too, but we'll see. Now we're going to transition to part 2 of this pod, which we recorded yesterday, where we talk about what our expectations are for Joe John Finley and Kevin Johns, kind of now steering the ship, what we think success means for a team that's likely going to be underdogs, except for against Maine the rest of the year, and some early thoughts on Ole Miss. So appreciate you guys watching as always. Hope you guys enjoy part 2 of the Oklahoma drill. So Bryan, I think one of the general things that I have heard since all this happened over the weekend, and particularly with Joe John taking over as play caller, is what what can we expect to be different? I mean, hasn't he been the co-offensive coordinator the entire season? And I think that's a legitimate question.
Sure.
But at the same time, I do think, and there's a couple of people I've talked to about a similar thing, and also just my own general thoughts about this. If you're thinking that, I'm just telling people now, if you're thinking that the offense is just going to be wildly different and it's just going to be unrecognizably different, that's not realistic, and that's not what's going to happen. I do think there are some tweaks and some changes that I do think we will see. And part of this is the wild card that you mentioned, which is that JoJo Finley's never called plays at the D1 level. This is really his first shot to call plays. And also he was in the booth for the South Carolina game, which was an interesting wrinkle of sorts for the first time this year. So I have my own thoughts, but Bryan, as you're thinking about what we think will actually be different or what we're hoping to see even, and that's even another thing, is what, if you're a fan, what are you hoping to see? What's a realistic thing that we can hope for? What do you kind of think of when it comes from the interim Littrell Johns regime? I love that. That's a good word. Regime. That's a good word. What do you think? General thoughts.
Well, what I think will be different is one of the biggest issues that I had with how Oklahoma was running the offense to this point has been there is just no lack of, or there's a complete lack of continuity whenever it comes to how the game is being called. It honestly felt like, all right, we're gonna call this one.
Yeah.
This is net. Like, I mean, it almost felt as if it was at random. And it also, especially in the last two games. Now I understand, like, your offensive line has to hold up if you're going to try and throw the ball down the field. Like, I get that, but there are ways of playing to try and win the game or to be competitive, and there are ways to just kind of slog and get your way through. And I feel like we saw more of that over the last couple of weeks than you would have expected from a team that, I mean, there's more pride than that, you would think. So part of me believes that there's going to be a little more reason why things are being called. I would imagine the level of intensity in those offensive staff meetings since Littrell was dismissed has been very much so hiked up. I would imagine that there's been a lot of pressure to get things right, but also a lot of pressure to fix what has been deemed as issues. And that's kind of, I lean back on something that we heard. I believe it was I think it was the last post game press conference. Coach Venables was asked about, do you know what issues are going on, or are you just trying to figure that out? I believe it was Hoover that asked it. But anyways, do you know what issues are going on, or are you just still trying to figure that out? And he's like, no, the issues are easy to figure out. Fixing them sometimes isn't as easy, but when I hear that, to me it sounds like they've established what the problem is. I mean, it's easy for an offensive or it's easy for a coach from the couch to say, well, the offensive line sucks. Okay. Yeah, the offensive line's playing bad, but how do you fix that? Like, what are things that you can build on that you have seen? What are some things that you can use in the scheme to really make the most of those guys that you have? And so I would imagine there's a lot of that kind of discussion going on. I also think there's value in bringing in a guy like Kevin Johns to have more emphasis and more of a say in what's going on. I think there's value to that. And also, I mean, I look at it this way too. If I turn in a story that I think is just pristine and perfect, more likely than not, you will read that story and you will see something that might need to be changed or edited or whatever. And I liken this to what's going on with the offense right now. I'm sure Seth Littrell in his job saw some things that he felt needed to be focused on, and it needed to be points of emphasis. Because I don't believe he was actually going out there just closing his eyes and calling plays. I'm sure there was some sort of method to what he was doing, but having somebody else in control of that and taking over and looking at that and editing, if you will, the offensive approach, I think there's value to that because you may see some things, changed and swapped that could make a major difference. Will it? We don't know. I certainly hope so, but I think those are some things that I would at least expect to change.
Yeah, I like that. I like that comparison at the end too, because I think in some ways, like again, like I said, it's kind of reasonable to think like, well, what is putting Finley in there going to actually do? Well, in some ways, he's kind of the best person to put into this because he's had a close connection, obviously, with the offense, but he has not been overseeing it. And right. the thing that I've kind of gotten the impression of, Brian, the last couple of days is that I think Littrell was really looking at everything almost from a head coach perspective. And I think he had, and I don't want to say a whole lot, but I think he was really pushing for things to be a certain way, particularly with personnel. And I do think from a Finley perspective, here's what we know. His offensive influences include Lane Kiffin and Jeff Lebby. And he grew up in an RPO, or he came into the coaching ranks in an RPO system that Jackson Arnold has played in and knows very well. Now, and I do think there will be a difference between, because I think they tried to utilize a lot of those same concepts to start the year with Arnold, but that's not the way Seth Littrell wants to call plays.
He wasn't building it out.
No. And you know who might be able to do that, at least in this, for the sake of resembling something like continuity or with consistency or with some sort of success? It might be Finley. Yeah. Who is more comfortable in that system and knows it better. And if you're moving forward with Jackson Arnold as your quarterback, what does it make most sense to do? It makes most sense to simplify things as much as possible and play to what your quarterback is comfortable in. And now you're doing that with a co-offensive coordinator that knows the system very well and also is calling plays for the first time. So you'd imagine he's not going to try to make anything more complicated than it has to be on himself, let alone anybody else.
Right.
And then you're doing it with a quarterback that knows that system well, and a system that, again, the circumstances were a lot different in December of last year. But man, I was combing through the numbers of the Alamo Bowl, which I've mentioned this before. Oh, you had 562 total yards of offense. Yeah. Can you imagine OU doing that this year? They haven't cracked 300 total yards in a conference game. Can you imagine OU doing that?
Nope.
I can't.
Not right now. Nope.
I can't. So if you're looking for what I think we're hoping to see, I think it's to make things simple and play to Jackson Arnold's strengths. And the other thing is, if there's one thing that he has done, shots, that pass to Brennan Thompson was great. And actually, that's been there like all year.
Has been.
It's been there all year. And even in that game, that was like the 8th time. I would need to go back and watch the film, but that was not the only time Brennan Thompson's been open all year.
Yeah.
If I'm that dude, I'm like, why am I not getting shots down the, I'm open. Yeah. I'm out running dudes. I'd like to think you could study the film and say, hey, Javonte Barnes kind of ran the ball okay against South Carolina. What did he do well? And let's look at that. And what were all of the turnovers? What contributed to all the turnovers? And it was putting our offensive line and tight ends in horrific spots they were never going to succeed in. And what can Jackson Arnold do well? He can throw the ball deep when he feels comfortable and has something resembling time to do so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. That's my expectation, and that's the kind of stuff I want to see.
Yeah,
That
I think that's exactly right. And you're kind of, I have three things written down. I picked three things that I think would be beneficial to this offense. And you kind of started one of them. One of the three was more downfield attacks in the passing game. I think you have to, regardless of your level of success with it to this point. I think the guys that you have are the one strength I would say that you have right now at wide receiver is speed. Like that's the only thing that if you look at the group, the guys out there are quick, they're fast, they could run by guys. You're going to get a lot of cover zero stuff right now because there's been no reason to respect what you do downfield, and so take those shots. It's been so easy for defenses to cover this offense because you don't have to respect the downfield passing game. There's nothing back there forcing you to keep guys playing safety, like a true safety. So,
and the one weakness of Ole Miss this season has been giving up big plays through the air. They're 91st nationally in passes of 20 yards or more.
Yeah, so you
and their run defense is fantastic.
Yeah,
so attack them.
Yeah,
right.
You have to. Yeah, you have to. And I think that would in turn also allow you to be more balanced on offense, because if you can force, it doesn't matter if it's Ole Miss defense. It doesn't matter if it's Maine next week. If you're able to push the ball down the field, you're going to have more success in the running game because you have to address those issues in the back end. You have to have guys back there in place to keep the quarterback from being able to just chunk the ball down the field. That's one thing. The second thing, this team absolutely has to establish their offensive identity this week. Yeah. You've had a change. You've had somebody else is at the sticks. Somebody else is taking over the controller. They are running the game plan the way that they see it fit now. You have to have an identity. And I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. If it's not going to be triple option, but if you come out and run triple option, and
I respect it.
Yeah. Like if you know that's what you're going to do, and you're doing it, at least you have an identity. At least you're going into this saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. I would imagine it's going to be the RPO stuff that we saw them running kind of in the spring, and kind of, I would imagine that it's more of that. And, with a guy like Finley that cut his teeth on that stuff, I would feel a lot better about the chances of those things looking right and looking the way that they should. Because I think if Littrell had it his way, there would have been more like I formation, two tight ends, like running the ball down your throat and then throwing it over the top like that. That's what he would want to do. But the guys that you have, just it doesn't work. You can't just do that with the personnel that you have right now. So establish an identity. You need to have some semblance of a run game. You need to be able to take shots down the field. Like you've got to find that at least. And you've said it multiple times throughout the season. At least whenever Jeff Lebby was here, you knew what you were getting week in and week out on the offensive side of the ball. You knew that there was going to be screen game. You knew that there was going to be inside zone. You knew that there was going to be deep shots taken down the field on play action. Like you knew that stuff was coming because that's what Jeff Lebby does. So establish an identity. And then the number one thing by a landslide, you have to get rid of the negative plays. Have to. That is like, if Oklahoma does nothing else the rest of the season, I will go this far. I'll put my neck out there this far. If Oklahoma does nothing else but cuts out all the negative plays, they will put themselves in position to win more than 2 games. Like if you cut out all the negative plays, you put yourself in position to win. You put yourself in position to win football games. Will they do that? I don't think so. I would really hope that they would, but that's why I'm not picking them to win the rest of the games on their schedule. If you are able to cut those things out, you put yourself in position to win. Whenever Oklahoma is headed backwards or nowhere on offense half the time, you can't win football games that way. There were 4 drives last week. I think Oklahoma had, I think it was 16 offensive possessions. I might be off, but I know for a fact there were only 4 drives that went 8 plays or longer. The rest of them were 3 plays, 5 plays, 4 plays, 2 plays, turnover. It was just constantly throwing the defense back out there on the field, and just hoping that they can hang on. And at the end of the day, the defense really only allowed 11 points. Like, that's
Defense
what's crazy
was fine.
about it.
Defense was good.
It played well, and so you have to get rid of the negative plays on offense. That's been the killer. That goes for, that's the defensive lines, just penetrating immediately and stopping anything in the backfield before it gets going. That's sacks. That's having to throw the ball away because the quarterback is under duress immediately. That's penalties. It's been one way or another. Oklahoma's found a way to shoot itself in the foot. And if they could just quit from doing that, I think you would be shocked at how much better this team looks.
I really love what you said about finding an identity, and I want to expand on that. But first, I want to say, if it was me with the controller, 4 verts every play, 4 verts. I don't care if I throw 10 picks, 4 verts. Or if it was NCAA 07, halfback direct.
Halfback direct.
The cheatingest,
yes,
most overpowered play in the entire game. Running that with OU and Adrian Peterson in the backfield was so unfair.
That's awesome.
Oh my goodness. I want to expand on your identity part of it and how important that is, not only from a offensive execution standpoint, but I think this coaching staff is in a incredibly difficult spot because you cannot punt on the rest of this season. And not that they would. You can't. You cannot just go out there and get beat by 50 the rest of the year. You can't. Everything will get, you have to be competitive.
You're talking about player retention being
yes.
an issue. There's a lot still on the line here.
There is. At the same time, things have been so bad, and I think unless things turn around miraculously, which who the hell knows, I think part of the identity part of that is figuring out who do you need to keep in the offseason. Who are players that you can build around? Who are players that are, regardless of who is hired at offensive coordinator, that you can feel good about needing to keep and building around? And that is obviously at one, quarterback, which is, boy,
you better get that right.
What a cluster heck of a situation that's become.
Yeah.
It's not all on Venables and the coaching staff. It's not, some of it's just bad luck, but they have backed themselves into a horrifically tough spot.
Yep.
With that.
Because I think, this isn't a hot take. You're losing one of those guys.
You're going to lose one of them.
Absolutely, you're losing one of them. And that, if you don't handle it right, you
might lose both.
Losing both of them. Now, I said this, I believe, in the post-game pod, and I think it still stands. Maybe even more so now after the firing. To me, you pick one of them and run with it. Like, who gives you the higher ceiling? Whoever you believe that is at the end of the day, who can you build around? You better pick one of them and you better run with it. It doesn't matter how bad it gets. You better pick one of them and run with it, because if you don't, and you keep playing this musical chairs game, you're going to end up quarterbackless.
You're going to alienate them both.
Yep. You're in the exact same spot you were in coming into this year. You need somebody with experience in this offense with not even the scheme, just around the guys, like having a relationship and building a relationship with the other playmakers. You've got to have some sort of chemistry going into next year. And the only way you build that down the stretch now is picking somebody and rolling with it.
No, I agree. But part of the figuring out what pieces you like or what players you like and who you want to keep. I also just mean build an identity from I want there to be more consistency in the players who are actually stepping on the field and what the purpose of all of those players, like what are you putting them in there to do? And I don't mean this as any disrespect to anybody, but what happened on the offensive line on Saturday? You throw Spencer Brown in there for 45 snaps. Why? He's not part of your future. He shouldn't be part of your present. I hate, like, it's not anything about, like, again, sometimes it's a little hard to evaluate anybody with how bad this offense is, but the numbers in and now you're starting the game with Heath Ozida at left guard. 9 snaps in, you pull him and you don't play him again. You start the game with Michael Tarquin on the sidelines, who's probably been your most consistent offensive lineman this season. You don't start him. Then after 9 snaps, you put him in there for the rest of the 76 snaps. And you start the game again with Jacob Sexton at left tackle. Then you move him back to guard. And then now players are getting moved. Mike Tarquin got moved to the right side of the line. What is going on? What are you doing?
How do you expect to have any consistency when you have a guy playing 3 different positions in a single game? And
if you're gonna do that, throw Eddie Pierre-Louis out there at guard. Throw Eugene Brooks out. I mean, and this isn't the incredibly difficult part is, like, again, you can't punt on the season, and freshman O-line, if there's any position group that is probably the toughest transition from high school to college, it's probably the offensive line or just either side of the line, right?
Mm-hmm. But it's been so bad. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, and I asked Brent today about Eddie Pierre-Louis. I asked him because a lot of people have asked, well, where's Eddie Pierre-Louis? And he said he's looked really good the last 2 weeks. That transition, because he didn't get here till the summer, that transition has been really, really difficult. He was kind of behind the 8 ball, but he said both coaches on both offense and defense have noticed how improved he's been, and they're trying to weigh this red shirt with him. But he's played in 1 game. You've got 5 games left. He can play in 3 more and still maintain a red shirt if that's what you think you're wanting to do. To me, again, part of that building an identity and having there be a consistency of who you're putting on the field, I would respect it more if it's like, we're going to give the young guys snaps.
Absolutely.
And again, it's you can't punt on the season. It's a difficult balance.
No. Here, do you mind if I build on what you're saying there?
Do it.
So, I think you are 100% right, because here's the reality is, some of the guys that you go out and get in the transfer portal, it sounds harsh, but in the NIL world, it is what it is. That's a 1-year rental.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what it is. That is a guy you expect to come in for 1 year and be a stopgap while you get the guys behind him up to speed, and you move on with that. The outlier in this year's class from the transfer portal is Febechi Wiwu, because he has more time. You can use him but unfortunately he just hasn't been what you hoped. And so I think you're exactly right. To me, you're not punting on the season. You are seeing if you have a Caden Green. You're seeing if you have a guy that can come in and make a difference. And I know that Bill Bedenbaugh is a stickler for playing freshmen. I know that he wants to have guys out there that whenever he's putting out tape and film, that they are technically sound in what they're doing. I know that's what he wants, but you haven't been getting that anyways. It's been terrible. Spencer Brown is a stain on what Oklahoma's offensive line has been to this point. And I mean nothing about that personally. I genuinely have nothing against the guy personally. But what you have put on film at tackle, particularly if you're Coach Bedenbaugh, to put that kind of guy out there, it just makes me question what the heck's going on.
Why don't you put Eddie Pierre if you're gonna play Spencer Brown?
Right.
Why not just play? Why not just play a freshman?
I get tackle and guard is a different position, but tackle is harder to play than guard is. Like
It is.
It's very frustrating because you do have guys that have a high ceiling, and I think one of the biggest issues Oklahoma's had on the offensive line this year has been physicality. I haven't seen Eddie play a lot this year, but just based on what we've heard, based on what I saw from him just throughout his entire highlight reel in high school, is the guy does not lack physicality at all. Maybe he's too physical. Like, I would rather that be the problem than what you're getting right now, because it's, as my high school coach would have put it, there's just a bunch of titty bumping going on right now. Like that's exactly what you see from these guys. It's titty bumping. They're going up chest to chest with guys, and they're not getting any movement whatsoever. Man. And it's really tough to watch. Like it's bad. I know. I just had flashbacks to grade school, middle school football, because I haven't heard that term in so long. But tell me I'm right. Like that's exactly what you see right now. It is. That's got to be frustrating. Well, you've got to put the young guys out there for what they have left. I mean, no, you're not punting on the season. You're not punting on the season. You are seeing what you have. You are avoiding insanity by repeating the same things that you've done over and over again. And you're also building for your future while doing that. You're multitasking. You have to, you've got to figure something out. And my argument would be, you're going to see those guys in the main game, right? You will.
Yeah.
You're not learning anything from that. You're not learning. Those guys, they are not learning anything from that game as far as what you have in a young guy, because you're getting more out of them at practice than you will be in that game. Like, let's just call it what it is. There's going to be somebody on that main offensive or on the main defensive line on the interior that's like 250 pounds and is just playing a different level of football. You're not learning anything from that point. So put them in there against this murderer's row that you have here and I'm not saying play them 80 snaps. Just see what you have.
To me, like, and I agree. And I think, and like I said, I just want there to be more consistency, finding an identity in, I mean, even like Jacob Jordan, who was great, best receiver on the field.
Yep.
For one, why hasn't he played all year? One, and two, he was clearly not part of the game plan. They threw him in there in the early in the second quarter because they were out of answers, out of options. And like, so again, I'm not in those rooms. Those guys know a lot more about their players than I do, and they know a lot more. They know a lot more about football than I will ever know. But there just seems to be sometimes like random, like there just isn't any. There's not a through line in a lot of the decisions that are being made, and therefore there's just not consistency. So to me, if I'm looking at what does success mean the rest of the season, assuming that may not include a lot of wins, I just want there to be more consistency and through line and stability in how the offense is operating and the plays that are being called and who is out on the field to execute those plays, and doesn't make sense on a given play where everybody is at on the field and what they're doing.
Yep.
There just needs, because that's going to be the kind of stuff. Those are the root of the issues so far. And to me, there just needs, like, if you're looking for what coaches are going to be on the team after this season, if you're looking at what players are going to be on the team after this season, like that's the kind of stuff you've got to get. It's almost amazing to say that those are the kind of issues OU's having, because this is an SEC Power 4 blue blood. It's amazing, kind of how much this thing has fallen. So I don't know, man. I just, that's the kind of, like, I want on Saturday against Ole Miss in a hostile environment, I want there to be like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, we haven't seen that guy before. I wonder what they're doing with him. oh, it's clear that he was a part of the game plan, and this wasn't just a F it. We're out of options. We don't know what
Right.
else to do. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Like,
that's what I'm looking at.
like Caleb Hicks looks the way he does in spring, and then we don't see him until garbage time against South Carolina, like all season long.
Yeah,
Like, of course, the running back rotation's just been a mess to begin with. But yeah, no, you're good. Sorry, I used the term titty bumping on
I
this
don't know.
podcast. I know that this is a family
That
this is a family friendly podcast, but
that caught me so off guard. Oh man, I can just see myself at it's Stillwell, the Stillwell middle school track growing up and hearing our coaches say we're just titty bumping and in practice. Oh man. I feel like I'm 13 years old again, 12 years old again. I don't know, Brian. Like, to me, Ole Miss is a 20 and a half point favorite this weekend. The odds are not great for Oklahoma. They're just not. You can't expect them to be, not with the way this offense is played, not with making a midseason coaching change, and not with going to an Ole Miss team that has lost 2 or 3 games. It's a really explosive offense when things are operating well, although I think they've had some issues in conference play. But an offense that can be really explosive and a defense that has been really good this year, and they need a win. Ole Miss came into the season as an SEC contender and potentially a playoff contender. If they lose any more games the rest of the year, that is absolutely at risk of not happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. If people are trying to think about what they're hoping for this weekend, I think you're just hoping for there to be a little bit more consistency, for there to be a little bit more of a through line, and for the personnel decisions to make more sense. Put Jackson Arnold in a better place to be successful. Don't move this offensive line a million miles an hour in different spots. And a wide receiver, hopefully you get Deion Burks back, but I don't know, man. I don't know. That's my, I mean, I don't think success has to be necessarily valued in the wins, is what I'm trying to say. As weird as that is to say about a program like Oklahoma.
Yeah.
You can't get your ass beat so bad that the game is over, and you can't just appear to be throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks. That's the simplest way I can put it.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. It's like you look at their games so far. They lost to Kentucky 2017. They beat South Carolina 27-3, and then before their bye week, they lost in overtime to LSU 29-26. I mean, Oklahoma's defense should give them some issues. It should give Ole Miss some issues. But the problem is Ole Miss has been really good defensively. Like,
yeah, really good.
They've been really good. This unit is right there statistically with the Tennessee and the Texas and South Carolina. Like, I mean, this is line it up. It's the next. It's a carbon copy of what you've been seeing. Very talented guys that can run with your guys, and they are playing for a coach that knows what he's doing. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding. I do think, I think I think Kiffin had something to say about how unpredictable Oklahoma is coming into this game, which, there is that element to this. It's just really hard to see this team as a 20-point dog and expect anything really to come out of this that's positive in the way of a win. I think, again, if you go into this and I'll put it to you this way. If you're an Oklahoma fan, Jesse, you go into Oxford and you come out of this game with less negative plays, you've got an identity, and you lose this ball game 31-24. Like, you're muted. You're muted.
Oh boy, that's a win. That's a win.
So you feel so
good about that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, doesn't matter that you're 4-4 at that point. Like,
no,
you feel great about that if you're an Oklahoma fan. But if this is another 35-6 game, like,
That's the one thing you got to be competitive. Got to, whatever that means. Whatever that means.
31, if it's 31-17.
17. I thought you were going to say, if you 31-17 in a game that wasn't over in the first 5 minutes, like there actually was some competitive football played for the first half or the first three quarters.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you'll take that.
I am the last person. I'm the last person to believe in
moral victories.
Like, that's just not. I understand the competitive nature of college football. Like, I get that. I'm just coming to you from a realistic.
You have to be realistic.
Yes.
You have to be realistic.
Yep.
This isn't just a bad offense. This is a historically horrific offense for the University of Oklahoma. And I mean, that's again, yeah. Do you want to win this game? Yeah. I mean, you're going into it hoping OU wins this game. If you're a fan, if you're a player, if you're a coach, but I'm just saying it in terms of if you're a fan, what can you take positively from this? And I think you just want to see consistency and competitiveness.
Yep.
Right.
I agree.
Anything 100%. Else to add? Anything else to add on the litany of things?
I don't like watching Red Iowa. This isn't very much fun. I say that Iowa's actually like 25th or 26th in offensive efficiency this year. So, yeah, I don't have anything else.
Well, me, Brandon, and Parker will be in Oxford, Mississippi this weekend because there are still games to be played and we have to go cover them, as hopeless as this season has seemed at times. We have to go to Oxford. We're leaving on Friday morning, I believe, to head to Oxford, Mississippi. We will be there as we are at every Oklahoma game to provide you guys coverage over here on the OU Insider YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you have not already done so, it helps us out. And make sure to go over to ouinsider.com, become a VIP subscriber today. All kinds of content over there. You will not be plugged into Oklahoma athletics better than you will be here at the YouTube channel or over at ouinsider.com. We appreciate you guys, as always, tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And we will be back next week for another episode of the Oklahoma Drill. Make sure to hang out with us this weekend as we provide you coverage. And we'll see you guys next week. Take care.